All right, guys. Hey, wanted to take a little bit of time. We've been spending some time talking about purpose and finding your purpose, discovering what your purpose is, all of those types of things. And I wanted to dig a little bit deeper onto how you can find your purpose and just some tips and also some pitfalls to watch out for as we do this. So I gave an illustration yesterday in my sermon, and I want to go a little bit deeper into that illustration. And kind of what we're illustrating here is some elements, actually three elements in your life that you can look at to discover your purpose. Now, there's actually more than three elements that you can look at. There's all sorts of things between relationships, family dynamics. There's so many things. But by and large, these three seem to be really good indicators for us. And so I want to spend a little time just digging in on those, kind of seeing where we go in that. So I've got an illustration. I'm going to pull it up and we're going to look at it, mess with it, all of those types of things, just to kind of help you see and have a visual for this so that you can find, your purpose, find your sweet spot in life, and learn how to do that with ministry in everything you do. So the three areas that we typically tend to find ourselves in is skill and gifting. That is like, what are you talented at? Like, what do you have an unnatural ability to do? And for some people, this is like mechanical things where they just have this really, really deep understanding of how things work and what that looks like and all of these types of things. So maybe it's that. Maybe you're the type that you have the ability to just make people feel welcome and at home. Or maybe you're the type where you just empathize with people in a really deep way. There's all sorts of different things that this could be. One of the things that's dangerous when it comes to skill and gifting is this. The danger is many times we have what is called the curse of knowledge. And the curse of knowledge is simply this. It is when you and I are good at something or have a knowledge about something, and so we believe everyone has that same ability or knowledge. So what can happen is if you've got an ability or a gifting or a skill set, and then you hear about somebody who doesn't have that, or it's really hard for them or something like that, you can sit there and go, I don't understand this. I don't understand why this is so difficult for them. I don't understand why this is a problem, right? And you got to be careful about that because that can actually lead to pride. And so we really need to watch that. But what ends up happening is we end up downplaying the gifts and abilities that God has given us because we think everybody should have them. And the reality is not everybody has them. Not everybody has the same knowledge you have. Not everybody has the same giftings, talents, skills as you. And so you need to recognize what those are. Here's a clue for you to figure those out. If you're having a conversation with somebody and you're talking through something or you're working on something and you notice that they struggle with what you're excelling at, that is a really good clue. If a lot of people struggle in something that you find very natural, really good chance that that is a specific skill that you have. All right, let's look at this. How about passion? Passion is a big one. Passion is this thing where you should be passionate about what you do. And there's people who are passionate about all sorts of things. There's people who are passionate about service industry jobs. There's people that are passionate about shipping and delivery and making sure those things get where they need to go. You've got to have a passion somewhere. And one of the ways to really kind of look at this is, what is that thing that makes you really excited, or gives you a deep sense of maybe a deep sense of accomplishment? Or what is that thing that breaks your heart? Those are usually some pretty good clues about where your passion lies. And God uses your passion to help with finding your sweet spot. So you need to look at skills and giftings, you need to look at passion, and then the third one is right here, experience. You have experiences that nobody else has. You have gone through things no one else has gone through, all of this. And so when it comes to finding your sweet spot, whether that's in ministry, whether that's vocationally, whatever it may be, you need to find your sweet spot. And most often you can look at these three areas to find it. Okay. Now, there are some pitfalls in here. So the goal is for you to end up right here in the middle. And notice there's some wiggle room. Maybe you'll end up right here. You're leaning more into your experience than the others, or maybe you end up over here, but there's room to move in here. This is not a one, only one option type deal. No. That's not what this is. But where we need to be careful is when we end up in these wings here, is when we can actually find ourselves in some pitfalls. So when you've got two of the three that are coming together, you run a risk there. So let's move this one. Let's look at this one, the cross between your skills and giftings and experience. And this one, I often say it does this. It leads to burnout. You can be good at something and have a lot of experience doing that thing, but if you don't enjoy it, the passion piece, you're going to end up burning out. You're not going to enjoy it as much as you could. You're not going to find as much fulfillment or meaning in your life. If you've got, if you are good at something and you have a ton of experience at that, but you are not passionate about that, you end up dealing with some burnout. So you need to be careful about that. You need to be aware of that. You've got to find a way for your passion to be a part of it. Now, sometimes what you need to do is just reframe things. Okay, maybe you're not seeing the point of it and you're not seeing how it fits the bigger picture. Like, so I used to work at coffee shops. That's what I did. I spent a lot of time working at coffee shops, and I like coffee, but I am not passionate about coffee. I know people who are passionate about coffee. I'm not passionate about it. I'll be honest, if I like good coffee, but I'm not buying and doing like some pour over method or all of this. I can drink Folgers just as good as anything. I prefer Black Rifle coffee, but there's different things. I'm not that passionate about it. Yet I worked coffee for a really long time. And one of the reasons I worked in coffee shops was because it was attached to a greater passion and a greater purpose. And what that was is I enjoy making connections with people. I'm passionate about making connections. I've got great gifting and skill in making coffee. I make a mean latte. I've got a ton of experience there. But if I just leaned on those things and said, well, it's all about coffee, it's not about the people, I'm going to end up here. But by reframing my mind to get it to where I recognize that, this is a great opportunity for me to connect with people, help people, pray for people. In fact, I used to pray for people while making lattes and handing them out the door. It was awesome. That's where it was able for me to be more here, because I could see how it was connected to my passion. So you got to find that. So maybe you're in the wrong spot. Maybe you just need to reframe some things so that you can be in the right spot. Well, let's look at a different area. Let's go right up here. Let's look at the combination between skill and gifting, and passion. So you've got some skill, you've got some passion around all of this, but you don't have a lot of experience. And what ends up happening when you have that, you're skilled at it, you're passionate about it, but you lack experience. It means typically what that means is you're gonna be, I'm trying to think of the right word here. I had it just a little bit ago. Basically what ends up happening is you have unnecessary mistakes. Okay? You're not as fruitful. Maybe that's the right word. You're unfruitful? I don't know if that's a word, but it is today. So you end up being unfruitful because you lack experience. So you don't know the best way to do things. You don't know the best way to get in those areas. You lack experience. And the great thing about this is you can gain more experience, but you need to have some understanding that you might have to hold back until you can get where you actually feel called. And you might need to wait until you've got more experience, because as you gain more experience, then you can become more fruitful. Let me give you an illustration on this. So one of the things that was said to me as a young pastor, I started in a really a very small church, about 40 people. They were barely hanging on. And we went in there and spent 5 years working in there. And I learned how to be a pastor at that church. That's where I learned how to be a pastor. That's where I learned how to preach and put sermon series together. And what does it look like to preach 50 times a year or 48 times a year or whatever? What does it look like to lead a board meeting? How do we do that? All of those things. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that until I was in that role. And I later heard it as I was getting ready to come to Stillwater, which was a larger church and more people, bigger board, all of these things. I guess my mentor was talking to somebody, and his comment was that Brush, the place we were at, was a preparation place for us. It was a place for us to prepare. He basically said that God didn't send us to Brush to build Brush. He sent us to Brush to build us. And there's times where that happens, where you have to go to the small place or something that's maybe not fully what you expected, so that experience can grow and you can end up in new areas. Because if you end up somewhere where you may have skills and giftings, but you don't have experience, and you may be passionate, but you don't have experience, you're going to end up, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. That's the way to look at that. There's going to be a lot of collateral damage. So you can end up being unfruitful because of that collateral damage. So be careful about that. But what about the third spot? What about this one right over here, where you are passionate? Let's see, can I get this? You are passionate and you have experience, but you have no gifting in that area. So you're passionate, you're experienced, but you're not gifted. And kind of like being unfruitful, it's a little bit different. You just end up being unproductive. And what you actually are going to end up doing is you end up, you're not making the mistakes, but you're not effective. And that might actually be the better word, not unproductive. It's ineffective. You're not effective. You're not going to, it doesn't matter how much passion you have, you're ineffective. If you have no natural giftings or abilities when it comes to singing, and yet your heart is into singing and you've got a lot of experience around music and all of that, if you step in and try to do that, you're going to be ineffective. You're not going to be as effective as you could be. And there are times where, maybe it's something where you need to look in a little bit different area. Maybe you're not a great singer, but you're a great musician, and you've got some skills and giftings in that way, and so you're able to adjust and shift. And so maybe your passion and experience leads you to be a musician, or maybe your skills and giftings are more around technology, and so instead of playing an instrument or instead of singing, you actually end up becoming an incredible sound engineer, to where you're in the back mixing everything because you have an understanding of how sound works and you're passionate about it, but you've got a technology understanding and a technology gifting that you're able to use that in that way. So don't be discouraged if you don't have the skills or giftings that you need to accomplish what you want. Be looking for other areas that, again, are full of that passion and that experience. You may be over here and you need to just shift just a little bit to get into that skills and giftings. Okay? So this is what I have found to be true and be helpful. So you've got to look at some of those things and just kind of have an understanding that the goal is to get somewhere in the sweet spot, or at least close to it. If you find yourself in one of the wings, you can actually end up kind of shortchanging your effectiveness in life, or your satisfaction, or your happiness, or your productivity, or any of those things, because you're not in your sweet spot. Now, there's one thing, and this got brought up in our small group, and I think it's worth talking about because these are not stationary. These can grow. So experience grows over time, right? So the longer you live, the more experience you have, so your experience grows. So experience is a circle, this circle that's constantly expanding, and as it's expanding, it's covering more ground. Now, it covers more ground all over the place. It's not all in your sweet spot, but it does expand that ground into your sweet spot. Your skill and gifting. You can take a class. You can learn. You can practice. You can develop some skills. You can, hone all of that. So your skill and gifting, that circle can also expand and move and do all of that. And the same thing with passion. I'm not passionate about the same things today as I was when I was younger. I'm not passionate about the same things I'm not passionate about the same things I was when I was single as I am now as a husband and a father. I'm passionate about different things. So your passions move, things grow, things change. And I think we have to be willing to let that happen also. And ultimately, remember that your skills and your giftings, your passion and your experiences, all of those things, the goal is to get those elements working together for the glory of God and for the benefit of others. Because that's really our purpose, is the glory of God, the benefit of others. And if we can do that, we'll begin to find what a truly, and I mean this, what a truly fulfilled life is. So guys, I hope this is helpful. I would love to hear your thoughts or your comments. Make sure to leave a comment, ask a question. I'd love to expound on this. If this is helpful, share it with somebody. Love to hear from you guys. We will see you next time.